Hello, hello. It's around 2:10 p.m. on a Monday, and this is the time. Okay, you caught me. It's not 5 a.m. like it says in the title. I know. I really did try recording that early in the morning, but it's just my me time before work, and I think I need to just uphold that boundary within myself, or else I'm just going to be always working all the time. So, without further ado, I'm Victoria, the architect, and this is how I view time. Usually around 5 a.m., I have like my headphones on, I'm listening to some good vibe music, I'm drinking my protein shake, and reflecting on what I'd like my day to look like around this time. It's early, I know. I would be lying to say that this routine I have was like an overnight thing, because it really wasn't. And there has and will always be some trial and error in that respect, which is what I want to kind of talk to you about today. First, though, I'm having immense gratitude for everyone who decided to listen in for the first two episodes. It is really hard not to pick apart errors on your own work, but I know that it's what comes with this challenge of mine to let go, let be, no matter how messy it gets. Also, thank you so much for your patience, because I took last week off for my birthday, and I just really wanted to kind of be offline as much as I can, especially given this time of year. It's hard not to be offline. But I digress. So, we left off with categorizing our messy ass laundry in order to put more time in our hands. Well, somehow, some way, we're going to need to put these newfound goals of ours into action. So, how do we do that? It's the thing most parents, guardians, loved ones of our elders have suggested for a millennia. The very thing we rebelled against as children. If you guessed routines, you win a gold star. Okay, but seriously, I don't think we recognize how building structures around our lives as children are the building blocks of how we view and value our own worth. And for that, it can be the most daunting of jobs of all time to be a parent. I'm not even one myself, but as an adult, I can really empathize for our parents to some respect for not being able to provide certain tools needed to have healthy, helpful structures. Because at least for me, knowing my dad was responsible and accountable for building structures for 4 deeply individualized kids before he was even 30, I just can't even comprehend having that kind of weight on top of maintaining my own structure and routines as like an adult. If there's anything that hasn't changed at all from the time my dad became a parent in the 90s to now, is that raising children is mentally and physically taxing in the US. We can channel the empathy we have, whether it is from either desiring for that structure you wish you had in the past, or even now, and create something useful out of it, like learning how to establish habits, maintain routines, and practicing self-care, which are attainable in the here and now. I started out as a virtual assistant on Upwork, and for me, that was offering online operational and administrative responsibilities for pretty much any industry. I don't really have a niche. There are some pros and cons to that. I went from working an office managerial role from like a 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, to working a remote 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., Monday through Friday, in a span of 3 weeks back in 2020. It was a bit overwhelming at first because I had just been laid off due to the pandemic. I had been making small steps towards becoming a virtual assistant, but I didn't really anticipate throwing out all methodology I had on how to get there and then just like jump right in. I was also super, super grateful though. It's like for being able to have the ability to have some kind of income during that time when so many people were not able to. It was a deck of emotions that I didn't even know really how to comprehend, to say the least. Even though there were 3 weeks between these life events, it still felt like overnight I was on a totally different path, on my way to achieving some major goals that I had. and the transition wasn't challenging as I think some people deemed it out to be, at least for me. When it came to working remote versus in office, as for the working itself, mainly because there weren't a lot of distractions back then, such as like planning activities during the day or like hanging out with friends. Like I didn't have these distractions that we normally would have when you're like transitioning from working to corporation to self-employed because it was the pandemic. So other than video games and binge watching trash TV like Tiger King, it was really easy for me to be able to focus on the daily tasks I was responsible for with my very first client. On the flip side of this, though, because there weren't any distractions plans, that meant I didn't really have the incentive to create a structured schedule around my work. Does that make sense? So don't get me wrong, I would work like a 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., but I could have woken up like 30 minutes before, grabbed a cup of coffee on an empty stomach, probably still in my PJs, and then like working from bed. I could stay up late. I could wake up late. I didn't have to look presentable or physically drive anywhere. Part of my work really was before having to get ready, drive to work 30 minutes each way. And now that really wasn't in my scope of responsibilities for my work. And I ended up abandoning a lot of my routines. Over time, the world started waking up again and my schedule got more busy. I found myself still trying to find time to maintain like a 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. while also regaining interests I had before, like going to concerts and like hanging out with our friends, traveling. That's where the problems really started to rise for me. I would work 10 a.m. to 2 and then answer emails from my phone whenever they came in, no matter the time of the day. I know, a big no-no already. Okay. I thought I could get ahead of my tasks by doing this, only to be constantly overwhelmed by the feeling that I was always needed and that my own needs weren't being met to my own fucking detriment. I can't really pinpoint when the time was when I was like, aha, I need to fix my routine. Fix this never-ending nightmare kind of thing. But I can say it probably had to do with wanting to start adding more clients to work with. And when I was mapping out how many hours I could really start offering for a second proposal, it became clear that there was like some major red flags that I created in myself. So we're going to flash forward and now we're here. I'm part of the 5 a.m. / like 5:30 a.m. club, and Google Calendar is pretty much my virtual assistant. As with most introspective journeys, we start with a curious thought, right? So my curious thought was this: what are ways that I can help myself attain certain goals? Goals aren't achieved miraculously. There's always some power behind it. How do I put power behind my goal? I need to work at it enough so it's stable, strong, like a muscle. You know, we can't like all be BBL Drizzy overnight like we may want to, but we can gather the tools and search for exercises to assist us in that. This is where I link goals to our routines. This is where the duration portion of our laundry pile really comes in. You thought I forgot about that? I did not. I want to go back to a couple of goals on my list, like speaking Spanish as an example. When I wrote down speaking Spanish, my duration that I wanted to dedicate, or at least I think how long it would take me to make good progress on absorbing dialect and other information, is like around 30 minutes a day. Looking at my schedule now, I could try and fit all 30 minutes in the afternoon, like say 4:30 p.m. to 5 p.m. That could work, theoretically, if I don't get caught up with other things like other projects. Another goal, though, I have is to doom scroll less through social media. I'm in doom scroll social media anonymous. Is that a thing? Too long of a name, probably. But it gets to the best of us. That's okay. I'm really the worst about this on my breaks. Like I have an hour lunch that I schedule myself, and then I have a 15-minute little break in the afternoon. Or like while I'm making dinner, which is like around an hour-ish a night. So looking at these two goals I have, not doom scrolling, and learning Spanish, the time I either want to commit to it or the time it is taking away from me, how does this fit into my current schedule? We're going to get a little timey-wimey here, so bear with me. First and foremost, you need to know what you do on a day-to-day generally. You only work a 9 to 5? Perfect. Yours will probably be the easiest to implement in new goals. Whatever you do day to day, there's some sort of outline you somewhat abide by. Take the time if you need to write it out or pull up your own little VA calendar. Mine, is Google Calendar, but if it's iCloud or I'm old. If it's iCalendar or whatever, just use that. Second, you need to choose what days and times you're going to commit towards your said goals. You have a guide of what your Sunday through Saturday looks like. Now you can see the spaces of time available to play with for these goals. Okay. But then some people might ask, what if one of my goals has a time frame longer than what I have available in my calendar? That's a very popular question I would come up with myself, But almost always you can break that goal down into smaller sections. So I know for myself that sometimes sitting through a learning lecture after work sounds super unappealing to me. No matter what I'm doing during the day, I don't think that the first thing I want to do after I'm done with work is to sit through another 30 minutes of work. So how can I make a compromise with myself? I can break that down, my 30-minute a day session goal, into 3 10-minute sessions throughout the day. That seems a lot more doable for me at this time, and I can always come back later and adjust when I feel more comfortable expanding that time back to a 30-minute, one sitting session. This is also hopefully going to help my other goal of less doom scrolling by placing those 10-minute sessions during my breaks. I can definitely dedicate 10 minutes on my break, my lunch, my dinner, prepping to learn some Spanish. This brings me to my third little step, tip thing, is make it fun and it'll come easy. Life is short, you guys. And if you have goals that feel like moving mountains, we can at least have as much fun and thrill as hikers have hiking. So making these goals fun to achieve is pretty pivotal, I think. A story that I have that kind of surrounds this is while prepping for the project management exam this past year, I had a time where I tried so hard for months to just read through textbooks, slideshows, go through practice tests, really go down to the nitty-gritty and just study like we used to in high school, at least for me. I would get so discouraged so easily because it felt like I was putting in hours of reading, only led by a failed quiz 20 minutes later. I went on a 3-month hiatus. I just went and decided I'm done studying for 3 months. I just needed a break. It gave me major burnout. I also wanted to just figure out a way I could make learning the context of some other rather dense areas of the studying not so grueling. I don't know. It wasn't that I had lost the passion for wanting to retain my PMP certificate, because I obviously have it now, or that I didn't like to learn in general, because I love learning. That's when the question of, how do I consume information now? That's kind of my second curious thought that popped in my brain. When I'm going through this little self-audit, I'm thinking, okay, I love YouTube. I use YouTube all the time to learn simple things and big things. Love reading articles and blogs. News outlets that try to maintain as objective as possible, though I feel like that's quite hard these days. And then we have Reddit, kind of like a gateway to other resources. And I use these platforms all the time on demand without even thinking, well, if I already have this certain habit, routine, what have you instilled in me, how can I align that habit to be the launch pad for this goal? And now the floodgates have opened, and it's like I am introduced into an entirely new world of PMP. If you're interested in passing the PMP exam, by the way, I'm going to be opening my exam prep playlist on my YouTube channel. These are just like videos along with other materials that I found that had really helped me become a better student into the content I was learning. I'm going back now. I found all these tools. I'm going back to my handy dandy Google Calendar with these newfound tools I was super excited to start using and start hacking at some of my solutions. I had this hour block of studying on my calendar that I put in, when I started studying for the exam. And with my 3-month hiatus, it was just haunting me. Every time I would open my Google Calendar, I would just see that hour block of studying. And I think even that created a negative connotation in itself because let's face it, anxiety is like living with another person, and I'm just trying to heal that other person within me so I can stop having to have it be controlling my life, essentially. Hopefully that makes sense. And hopefully you didn't hear my neighbor just hack up something. I don't know. Anyway, getting focused again. I have these tools. I know that I love using YouTube, and now I've found some really great resources that can help me study for this. What do I do with this negative connotation on my Google Calendar of studying? It just I don't know, discourages me. Okay, we're going to just rename it. New tools, who's this, is kind of the mentality. And instead of naming the hour just studying, I titled it whatever the video I wanted to watch that day. Even better, I link the video in the description in my Google Calendar, as an event, so that I could bypass the distractions from my YouTube dashboard, because I don't just use YouTube for education. I got my stuff that I like listening to, So I ended up making more progress though in learning the fundamentals of PMP the last 4 months leading up to my exam than I had in the past year, and I passed in April. Knowledge is power. And when we're trying to find answers to the unknown, the best ones we uncover are sometimes about ourselves. When I picked up studying again, it wasn't that I didn't know the content. I just didn't know how to receive the information because all I knew about studying was from school. And that made me feel like learning had to be confined into a box. If you don't use it, you lose it. And as adults, we forget to keep asking questions to feed the curious mind and end up staying in this structure that others have given us because it was the right way to do things. It could be for sure, but there are 8.2 billion people in this world as I'm recording this, and I'm hesitant to state that the one size fits all really works here. It's important to have structure. It's also important for us to grow with our structure. You're not on the same schedule as you were at 5 years old. The same thing applies here, Every time I want to start something new, sign on a new client, offboard a client, I set aside time to look over my routine to see how and where I can tweak it and mold my time to my liking again. Because if not now, freaking when? The other side to putting goals into your daily life is finding tools either within your schedule you already have or browsing within the abyss of technology. Apps, browser extensions, hell, even sticky notes are great examples of these tools to help alleviate some of the stress that inevitably comes with change. Again, we're here to make it fun, so it'll be easy. I'm a huge advocate of staying within software, hardware ecosystem if you can, and or finding ones that are cross-compatible. While I don't like the rivalry between PC versus Mac, Apple versus Android, blah, 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 I can agree that the advantages of being exclusive to one brand creates a better atmosphere for daily flow and implementation. I guess not brand, software, you know what I mean? I like using Google Workspace, for example, for a majority of my work because it's really easy to use. I can download Google Apps, Drive being a big one, to any device and never have to worry about file transfer from one computer to another. And Yo, this was a hard lesson I learned when I left my phone atop of my car one summer back from river floating. RIP S21 Ultra. Other awesome apps, though, I've used to help me like all my tasks and goals in my routine. And none of this is sponsored, by the way. So just get that straight. But our Trello, Todoist, shit, even on my phone's reminder app is a daily helper of mine. All of these apps, free and paid, I have been able to control between my desktop, laptop, phone, without even feeling like a section of my routine is lacking. And if you get overwhelmed easily with the plethora of options, like I said, you can totally just use whatever the features your phone, computer, or scheduler has. But there needs to be like a main source to help hold you accountable. Whatever source you choose, iCal, Google Calendar, Trello, a physical calendar, spend time to know all of its features, customizations, so that you can really commit to this thing. It needs to be an easy buy-in for you. And as someone smart once told me, confused buyers don't buy. So make sure that this tool will support you in the way that you are asking it to and understand how to use it to its full potential. And remember what I said about learning. Just because a platform has a tutorial provided, it doesn't mean you can't still look up other tutorials in addition to that. This is where my Reddit and YouTube become my best friends, basically. If we want to achieve these goals, though, we need to create habits around them that support that vision. And the only way we can do this is by challenging our current norm. By challenging ourselves isn't something we organically see in itself. Yet we know it's the only way to get from A to B. If we can accept that no matter what, that there will be obstacles on the way to victory, we have already accomplished one. And when we do see this, only then are we able to find ways to choose what we will and will not face. This is facing the fact as an adult. We are responsible of our own growth, validation, and well-being. That shit is hard. So let's find ways to make it fun, make it easy, and be okay with the new chapters along the way. Before I go, I have another little shower thought for you guys. All while I'm still gathering answers for the weird tree water retaining one. Do you think turtles get just as annoyed if sand gets in their shell as we do when sand gets on our bathing suits? Or do they even notice? I'm asking for a friend. If you know the answer or have an inkling of one, I'd love for you to let me know either by DMing me on Instagram at @theguidingfox or leave a comment on this episode in particular. Okay, guys. Okay. Until next time.